Hello, everyone, and welcome to Slash Film Daily for Monday, March 2nd, 2020. On today's episode, we're going to be talking about the latest film and TV news. My name is Ben Pearson. I'm the senior writer at slashfilm.com, and I am joined on today's episode by Slash Film weekend editor Brad Oman
Hey, that's me.
and writer Hoai-Tran Bui.
Hey everyone.
Brad, happy birthday. Happy belated birthday. You're back from vacation. We missed your birthday, but I wanted to wish you a happy birthday on the podcast.
Hey, thanks. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
nice to get away for my birthday and be on vacation. It was literally the first time I've been on vacation since college and spring break. Like I've taken days off here and there, but it's the first time I've ever had like an extended break away from work where I didn't have to worry about anything.
Wow, that is awesome.
Wow.
I'm sure
Yeah,
we'll
hope
talk
you had
about.
a happy birthday.
Yeah, and I'd forgotten that your birthday is so close to HT's. HT just celebrated her birthday as well. So
Yeah.
hopefully we'll get a chance to talk about more about your vacation and stuff later this week. Maybe we'll get a chance to do a water cooler episode or something like that because I definitely want to hear about what you've been up to. But in the meantime, let's talk about some film and TV stuff. So HT, the Uncharted movie. This thing has been chugging along for years and years. We've talked about it a lot over the recent months as it seems to be almost like stumbling toward production. Like there's just one step forward, one step back. It's like the studio is intent on making this thing, come hell or high water. And now, evidently, it seems to be moving forward, and it's actually added another person to its cast. So, who has joined the cast of the Uncharted film?
Yeah, Uncharted may finally maybe be getting kicked back into gear. But Antonio Banderas is the newest cast member of Uncharted. He will be starring opposite Tom Holland and Mark Wahlberg. His role has not yet been confirmed, but judging by past films, which he has been typecast as the villain before, it's likely that he'll play the villain because Hollywood loves their baddies with an accent. And it seems a little bit of a step down, especially after Antonio Banderas scored his first Oscar nomination for his just career best role in Pain and Glory. But this is a big get for Uncharted, which has long had just Tom Holland and Mark Wahlberg. Before that, just Mark Wahlberg attached. So Banderas is joining, as well as two other cast members, Sophia Ali and the 100 actor Tati Gabrielle. And this all comes as Ruben Fleischer has been confirmed to be directing Uncharted. He's going to be the eighth director in a long line of directors to be attached to this project, but Sony has locked him down, so he can't leave for now.
Oh,
So
man.
it seems like they're chugging on ahead, as you say, like they're back on the map. Um, I don't know other like charted puns. Yes, it's happening.
Map-related puns. Yeah, so I've played all of the Uncharted games. I think the fourth one, A Thief's End, I believe is the subtitle, is like one of my favorite video games of all time. Thinking about Antonio Banderas and him joining the cast of this movie, I cannot think off the top of my head of a character from that franchise that he would be great to portray. But then, thinking a little bit more about the movie's approach, this is sort of a prequel story to the story that is that plays out over the course of those four games, because Tom Holland is playing a younger version of the adventurer Nathan Drake, who is the primary like protagonist of those games. So Antonio Banderas, if he does indeed play a villain, could just be some brand new character that's made up specifically for this story. So there's that. I don't think we have any actual information about who he's playing or even like real speculation about that, do we, HT? Or is it just sort of like we're just guessing because, some of the bigger names have already been announced and
Yes.
yeah, okay.
It's all speculation at this point. There's no official information about who or what he's playing, and we only know right now who Tom Holland and Mark Wahlberg are playing.
Yeah, yeah. All right, so we'll see if Uncharted actually gets to the starting block this time. Speaking of things that have taken years and years to come to fruition, Brad, Why the Last Man, the TV series, recently lost its lead actor, but it seems that they've found a replacement now?
Yeah, so Barry Keoghan from Dunkirk was supposed to star in this series, and production was going to begin in April, but inexplicably he dropped out for some reason at the last minute. So FX needed to find someone to replace him quickly instead of delaying the series yet again. It's been in development for like 5 years now. And they found a new star in Ben Schnetzer, who you might remember from the Warcraft movie. He's also been in some other TV shows like The Truth About Harry Kubert, about the Harry Kubert Affair, Happy Town. So he's been around for a little while. He's also starred in The Book Thief and Snowden, and now he's going to star in Why the Last Man as the title character, Yorick Brown. It's the last male left on a planet where some kind of pandemic has killed off all living mammals with a Y chromosome, and leaving a post-apocalyptic world in charge by women. So yeah, I guess it's good that the series isn't going to get canceled or delayed again. I'd be interested to hear why Barry Keoghan left the series so late in the game. If something better came along, or maybe it seemed like the series wasn't going to turn out the way he had hoped. But we'll find out eventually, since, like I said, production's supposed to start in April.
I think they've already shot the pilot for this, so I wonder if they're just gonna film the scenes that he was in solo and insert him in there, or if they're gonna reshoot the entire thing. But I guess it remains to be seen on that front. Brad, did you ever see the Warcraft film? I never saw that movie.
I did, actually, and it's not great, but I don't know, it has some great world building in it. But it just didn't really feel all that thrilling or exciting. It was weird because I remember leaving thinking I wanted to spend more time in the world, but the movie also felt like it was too long, which was a weird feeling to have afterwards. Mm-hmm. But I don't know, I liked how it really leaned into the fantasy, kind of harder than some do. Mm-hmm. And Ben Schnetzer was, he was fine in it for what his role was. It was a big ensemble cast, so he didn't have tons to do, but
yeah.
This will probably be the most significant role he's had outside of that.
Yeah, I'm kind of excited about this. I remember I think it was 2007, 2008, somewhere around there, DJ Caruso, who directed Disturbia and Eagle Eye, was in talks to direct a movie version of Why the Last Man with Shia LaBeouf in the lead role, and I remember thinking that was really great casting at that time. Obviously, that would not work now. Shia LaBeouf has definitely aged out of that role, but I'm kind of excited about a relative unknown. Like you mentioned, he's been around for a while, but I don't think Ben Schnetzer is a household name, for our listeners and readers of the site and stuff like that. I barely know who he is, and I do this stuff write about the stuff all the time. So I'm excited about somebody who doesn't really have a lot of baggage coming to this role and maybe being able to put their own spin on it. So Brad, Aishi, what do you guys think about this casting?
I haven't seen Warcraft, so I don't really have any opinion, but I am on the side with you of an unknown in this role, because although Barry Keoghan isn't quite that well known either, he's more well known amongst independent circles, but it will be better, I guess, to have someone who just is not really recognizable outside of Warcraft fans.
Brad, any thoughts?
I think I'm just hoping that the series is good, because this is a cool graphic novel, and it's been in the works for so long. I just hope that it's done justice to whoever is in the lead role. So I'll reserve my judgment until the series hopefully makes a premiere on FX.
All right, so moving on to our next story, there's a report from Page Six, which is a tabloid, that actor/director Ben Stiller is joining the cast of Fast and Furious 9, aka F9. So before we go any further, we should preface this by saying that Page Six is not the most reliable source. They have been right in the past. There is a chance that the story ends up not being true. But just the idea of Ben Stiller potentially being in a Fast and Furious movie is too juicy for me to just avoid entirely as somebody who loves the Fast and Furious movies. So I just wanted to, the actual report really quickly, it basically just says that Stiller will have a role. It seems likely that he'll have a very small part, and he's due to begin shooting scenes in F9 soon, whatever that means. So we don't know anything about what kind of character that he might be playing in this. Before I throw out a couple options that I wrote about in this piece at slashfilm.com, I wanted to open the floor to you guys and just get your, sort of gut reactions to Ben Stiller potentially joining. Let's just, for the sake of this conversation, pretend that the story is true. We'll keep an eye on it, and I've actually reached out to Ben Stiller's representatives to see if I can get, official confirmation and all that. So we'll update the article if we hear back from them. But in the meantime, let's just assume this is true. And what do you guys think about this? HT, what do you think about Ben Stiller potentially being in the Fast universe?
It's so out of left field that I kind of love it. Ben Stiller, is really a depth comedian, but he's also great at drama. But I think that if he brought some of that comedy to the series, which already has such like a tongue-in-cheek approach to its own elevated action, that it could feel like a breath of fresh air. I could just imagine Ben Stiller just being like that normal guy who somehow gets caught in this roided out world and being like, what is happening? What is going on? And I think that would be a fascinating movie unto itself. So, yeah, why not?
Brad, what about you?
I mean, I think Ben Stiller is great, and I think that it's just weird enough to be cool. And, especially since all the way back in 2000, he had that awesome cameo appearance in Limp Bizkit's music video for Rollin'. So I think if anything, maybe he's just reaching back to his roots of, just loving, rolling down the street in a sweet ass vehicle.
Wow, I totally forgot about that. I should have embedded that music video in this article. That is a massive oversight on my part, but a nice pull there, Brad. That's man, wow. So really quickly, it's not unprecedented for a big, high-profile comedic actor to appear in these movies. Both Ryan Reynolds and Kevin Hart popped up in small roles in Hobbs and Shaw recently. So, there's a chance that Ben Stiller could be doing something like that, where he basically just comes in, drops a couple of one-liners, and then leaves, and doesn't really have much effect on the plot overall. There's also, I kind of am hoping that maybe he's like a supervillain, like some sort of secret mastermind behind the entire thing. Like Charlize Theron's character is, her name is Cypher. She's this computer hacker that's been supposedly like pulling the strings for a long time, but maybe she reports to somebody. And there's in Hobbs and Shaw, there's this terrorist organization called Etion, and that movie ends with Etion's leader speaking in this like mysterious garbled voice and basically saying that he's like, Hobbs and Shaw are like on his radar now and all this. So maybe there's the chance that Ben Stiller is that character, like the leader of this terrorist organization. I had assumed that the bad blood between Vin Diesel and Dwayne Johnson would mean that the distinctions between the Hobbs and Shaw movies and the Fast and Furious saga movies are kept separate for, just to avoid those two having to come in contact with each other. But maybe there's some sort of grand plan that ultimately brings it all together for Fast 10, which is supposed to be like the final movie in the Fast and Furious saga. So this could be some sort of potential setup for a supervillain character. I'm just wildly speculating here. And then there's one more, my personal favorite option. I'm actually not going to talk about now. I just want to drive people to the actual article because I think it's a lot of fun thinking about what ridiculous role Ben Stiller might be playing in this movie. So I encourage people to check that out. So in the meantime, let's move on to our next story, which is about the MacGruber TV series. So Brad, A, can you believe this is happening? And B, what's the latest on this?
I mean, I'm going to be cautious and not believe this is happening until it's actually streaming in front of me. We heard a while back that Peacock was going to be making a MacGruber TV series. Apparently, Norman Zacconi and Akiva Schaffer and Will Forte had turned their idea for MacGruber 2 into a season arc for TV instead. So I'm very much excited for that. But it sounds like maybe they haven't been given the official green light yet. We recently had an interview conducted with Will Forte for in conjunction with this Irish horror comedy Extraordinary that he is starring in. And so our own Alex Arabian interviewed Will Forte and talked to him briefly about MacGruber. And he said he talked to Ian just kind of about being excited for it. But he did mention that he's hoping that they let them make it. So it sounds like maybe even though they announced it, that it's not officially set in stone yet. I don't know if NBC Universal wants to wait and see how the subscriber outlook is when Peacock launches before they start digging in and greenlighting all these different projects. If anything, maybe they were just testing the waters to see if the interest was there.
That's interesting. But I was under the impression that it was like a done deal, but it sounds like that's not the case.
I mean, it's very much possible that maybe Will Forte doesn't know what has been officially announced yet. So maybe he's playing coy just in case. But he does when he's in part of this interview, he says, we're pretty excited about what we've come up with, but we're here just waiting to see if they'll let us do it. So we'll see what happens. But I think what I love most about what he said here, and you can go read the article to read, all of his comments, but the interviewer, Alex Rabian, asks if KFBR 392 will again recur in this season. And Will Forte said, I don't think so, even though I appreciated the reference. He says, there are certainly a couple of things like that we touch on, but for the most part, we're moving into new territory. The tone of it is the exact same tone, but we just didn't want to make it be like a greatest hits from the movie. But people will be satisfied and grossed out enough, which is great news to me because I don't want them just to tap on what made MacGruber funny before and like retread jokes and make all these references for fans who loved it. I like that they're going in a new direction. They're not going to force stuff like that, and that they have an idea that is just more of, MacGruber. So I think that's awesome.
For sure. I'm excited about that too. HT, have you seen MacGruber? What's your relationship with that movie and that property, I guess, now?
I have not.
Oh, man. You got to check that out, HT. It's so funny. Brad, should we explain what KFBR 392 is for people like HT who have not seen the MacGruber movie?
I mean, if you haven't seen MacGruber and you don't know what that means because of it, I think you just need to go watch the movie to find out, because it is one of the funniest bits in the movie, and I think it's I think that alone is just worth watching MacGruber.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, good. All right, let's jump to our last story of the day, which is that the Invisible Man director Leigh Whannell has struck a 2-year first look deal with Blumhouse. Brad, what does this mean, and especially what does it mean for maybe the future of more Universal Monsters movies?
Well, in general, I think this is just good news for horror. Leigh Whannell and Blumhouse have collaborated to great success before. They worked on the Insidious franchise together. They worked on Upgrade together. They've been a great team for a while now. And after the success of the Invisible Man reboot, it shows that they're willing to do more. This is a 2-year first look deal that will give Blumhouse a first chance at grabbing any projects that Whannell will write, direct, or produce. And perhaps the most exciting aspect of this is if Universal is, satisfied with The Invisible Man, which seems like it's going pretty well based on the $30 million box office return in its opening weekend on a budget of just $7 million, then perhaps Leigh Whannell and Jason Blum could maybe become the new shepherds of a Universal movie monster universe, since Dark Universe didn't take off with the Mummy reboot that starred Tom Cruise so long ago. And based on the glowing reviews for The Invisible Man, I haven't seen it yet, but I'm excited to go see it this week. It sounds like that would be something that fans would very much like, because Whannell's approach to The Invisible Man is something that was modern, but it kept, the core, scariness of the original Invisible Man character intact, but made it relevant to today's culture and contemporary times. And so if he can do something similar, even if he's just producing other Universal monster movies, then this could be the right way to really ring in a new cinematic universe for all those classic movie monsters.
So I don't think any of us on this episode have seen The Invisible Man yet, but as you mentioned, Brad, it's getting very good reviews, and I think all of us are excited to check it out, hopefully sometime very soon, maybe this week even. But HT, I'm curious what you think about this, because from what I understand, The Invisible Man is supposed to be sort of a commentary on the Me Too era, and it's very much about trauma, and it puts a female character at the forefront and all of that, and it sounds great, and it sounds like a fantastic performance from Elizabeth Moss, not as if we would expect anything else from her at this point. But the future of Universal monster movies, do you think that they can all be modernized in a similar way? Do you think that I guess what do you think about the potential for modern day versions of Frankenstein or something, for example? Do you think that there's going to have to be some sort of I don't know, what would you call it, a social hook or something for each of these movies?
That's a good question, and I think that it's possible with all the Universal monster movies. I think that each of the monsters, Frankenstein's monster, Dracula, the Mummy, Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, all have remain so timeless and have maintain their popularity for so long because they represent some sort of primal fear, and they are very much sort of the modern folk tales of our time, and those again are proved to be very universal and proved to be very timeless. So I think that if you go take it from a clever and smart and sensitive approach, you could do it. I can't think of a lot off the top of my head right now, but Dracula has been done over and over in modern contexts. And the whole idea of vampires and chastity and the stalker and the knight is something that could be done and has been done in sort of like more satirical sorts of ways, but it could be done in a more straightforward horror way. Jekyll and Hyde, definitely something that you could do. You could modernize with its idea of the dual personalities and our id or ego taking over. And I actually hadn't thought of it, but I think that's a really good way of approaching them. I don't know if you could build a whole cinematic universe like so many studios wish to do, but I think that you could certainly build a really interesting series of films that would be very unlike a lot of horror movies you're seeing today. And I think it proves that, that these stories are timeless and these monsters are timeless, and you could do something with them for sure.
That sounds pretty cool. Brad, do you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, not having seen The Invisible Man yet, I think my opinion is just one of just jumping on the bandwagon because of how good it is. But I do think that there's a chance here to do something with the Universal monsters that updates them for contemporary times in a way that makes them, I don't know, like obviously the movie monsters have always had metaphors tied to them, but I think you have to do something in a refreshing way to make it more relevant to today's audiences, because we haven't seen a lot of these classic movie monsters in, that kind in a horror setting for a long time now. So I feel like you have to do something that really taps into today's culture and make it relevant in order for people to care about it, and like The Mummy attempted to do that by essentially making, a Mission Impossible movie with the Mummy, and clearly it didn't work. So something new has to be done, and I if these guys are the ones to do it, then I'm excited to see what they can do.
I think that's well said. All right, I think that's going to bring us to the end of today's episode of Slash Film Daily. You can find all of our work at slashfilm.com. You can, you've listened to this podcast enough. You can find us on Twitter and Instagram and all that stuff. You can find more about the stories that we mentioned on today's show at slashfilm.com and linked inside the show notes of this episode. Slash Film Daily is published every weekday, bringing you the most exciting news from the world of movies and TV, as well as deeper dives into the great features you can find on the site. You can subscribe to the show on iTunes, Google Podcasts, Overcast, Spotify, all the popular podcast apps, and send your feedback, questions, comments, and concerns to us at peter@slashfilm.com. Make sure to leave your name and general geographic location in case we mention your email on the air. Don't forget to rate and review the podcast on iTunes. Tell your friends, spread the word. Thank you for listening. And if you've listened this far, thank you for putting up with the construction noises that are going on outside of my window and have been for this entire episode. I've tried to mute my way around them, but man, it's been tough. So anyway, thank you for listening, and we will talk to you tomorrow.